there'll be like a slow decline and we won't even realize it's happening, but all of a sudden we'll be driving 40 in a 60 zone.
Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Roger,
And welcome to The Middle,
where we try to have thoughtful conversations
about awkward topics.
on our search to find the middle.
We're going to give you last week's news today.
It's a slogan we should put on a t-shirt.
Stop touching her!
I am tonight announcing my candidacy.
Taylor Swift.
Look, my biggest issue with marriage is that I think that it's a fundamentally flawed institution that is built on the oppression of women.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny.
Having truly rational conversations about controversial issues is risky these days.
Roger.
Andy, how you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Good end of year for you.
Ooh, it's been a rough one, but in a good way. I think I was trying to remember what happened last year and where we were with hosting duties, but I've done the back-to-back hosting this year again, which has been what you'd expect, but it all went well. But it's just such a lot of work, and I find with my personality, it's really hard to go in half-cocked for these kind of hosting duties. So you always
Wait, was that some kind of Christmas turkey pun that you...
No, unfortunately not. And I'm not a turkey guy, so you can count that out. I actually is my least favorite. And I always find it weird that people are so emotionally attached to the turkey, especially in Australia as well. I thought it was more of an American thing. But when I have done a bit of a straw poll around the place, turkey is still really up there in terms of what people expect on Christmas Day.
Yeah, no, I can... for me, it's just pavlova. As long as I've got that, I'm sweet.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else.
What about you, Andy, this year? How did it go down?
It's finished. That's all I need to remember or know.
That good. Why is it so stressful? Like, it's not, maybe stressful is the wrong word, although it definitely can be.
I put specifics to one side, just in general. It's like you barely get your head around everything you've got to do, like before you finish work. So like you work like right up to Christmas, and depending on what you do, you're probably pretty busy at work. I don't know, like I have not had this gradual wind down of the year that like, that sometimes you might have in your head that you're going to be like winding down. Like that never seems to happen. And then you have finally some time off, but like the jump between your last day of work and Christmas, it doesn't allow a lot of time to gather your thoughts.
It's so true, actually.
Yeah.
I worked right up until the moment, right up until Christmas this time too, and it's so hard, especially with the kids, right? Because I have to jam everything, like the serious prep in the hours of when they go to sleep, right? So it's actually really hard to make it all work and make it all fit in. And everyone knows if you have hosted before, it's all about prep, so you have to sacrifice time before the event if you want any hope of enjoying the actual event. So it becomes this prolonged thing, and there are logistics and all this stuff, right? You need a schedule, you need a plan. And for someone who doesn't love to overplan things, and I like the kind of organic nature of a cook coming together, it sucks. But it's always, look, these things are always worth it in the end, but you have to get through it.
All right. You've been studying the listener question stockpile.
Yeah, I have. We thought we'd try to put a bit of a festive slant on our listener questions. So I've picked a few ones that are of the season, right? So I'm going to hit you with a few, and let's see how we go. Hey, Andy and Roger, I've got a bit of a situation I would love a ruling on. It's Christmas time, and it's always kind of tense. I always seem to get judgment from my in-laws around Christmas Day. My husband reverts to such a mama's boy, and my mother-in-law always makes snide remarks about my housekeeping and hosting duties. It's never good enough, and it's starting to wear me down. The problem is there is some truth to her criticisms, but to be fair, I'm a millennial woman, and we're all like this, especially the men. They just don't cop it. What do I do?
Okay. So I think with this one, I don't know. It's just like everyone does Christmas a little bit differently, and I don't think it's just generationally. I think people who take it seriously, and don't kind of speak the same language as those who don't take it seriously. And I think that's
You don't think it's generational though?
no, not really. I've seen some of the I've seen people who don't take it seriously in all generations. So I don't think it's I don't see the generational divide as much. But you know, hey, maybe that's a thing that I'm just not observing. But like, no, I just think it's like, what do you define as success? Like, are you the Chevy Chase of this movie? And I think, you know, it's for some it is, and for others it's not. I mean, I think in my mind, like I want to kind of, and I'm not sure if this is what we're all doing, but like I'm thinking back to the moments of my childhood that are kind of rose-colored glasses, right? So they're the fondest, you know, kernel of the thing that you're like remembering, right? Even down to like, oh yes, wasn't that romantic when we used to go to church, you know, on Christmas morning, you know, like
Midnight mass.
like that was fucking boring as batshit. But you know what? You don't remember the boring bits. You remember the, you know, oh yes, and they had the little, you know, I don't know, what are those figurines, the manger or whatever, you know, it was that, you know, tradition, you know.
You don't remember the boring bits,
Like,
you only remember when the priest sucked you off.
Yeah. So this year's Hanukkah, by the way. You know, like going like Christmas tree hunting, like that's a fond memory, right? Like driving around to, you know, and then you pick and choose the tree and you load it up. So it's trying to remember the essence of like those little bits and then to recreate those, right, on steroids. But of course, it's never that simple. Like you're always like this, everything else is involved. Like it's that's those are the highlights, but then there's all the like boring bits that go along with it. So, but yeah, I don't know. I just think if one does suck at preparing a good Christmas experience, then I think that just probably isn't. It just reflects like a different value. Like it's not as important, and I think that's fine. I think whatever floats your boat.
All right. Well, you know, I tend to agree, but I have a few things, right? Like I want to kind of dissect a few things. Number one, my experience is that the older generation, so our parents' generation, boomers, especially the women, they still have a traditional notion of Christmas and hosting, and what's steeped in good etiquette is being like posh, right? Or whatever it is. And so I think that they do care about standards much more than the younger generation. And I do think that, you know, she's onto something about this whole, we're millennials, because millennials are late bloomers in this situation, right? Like I actually don't think they have adopted or, you know, have established a lot of domestic kind of fortitude, so to speak, or muscle memory, or they have maybe much later in life or whatever. So I think that there is something there that they're definitely like, now whether it matters, or whether it should matter, that's a different story. And I firmly believe, you know, like what we started saying is that there shouldn't be so much pressure around Christmas. It's ridiculous. It actually is ridiculous. You spend money you don't have to impress your family that should already love you. And it is very stressful for everyone involved, right? And especially the host. So to receive criticism is just not, like, that's not ideal.
I don't know. I want to push back on like this boomer sort of posh sort of boomer matriarch kind of.
Oh, come on,
right?
Man. Like they're going to be upset if there's not the roast, even though it's like 38 degrees.
No, I disagree. I don't think that's right. I think that's true for some, but not for all. You know, that just isn't. Well, it's not my experience. So, you know, I think that speaks to the diversity of, and I'm going to call you out, Roger. I know that you take Christmas and Christmas cooking exponentially more seriously than the average boomer woman. So, matriarch. So,
no, look, there's nuance here, right? So I take my food seriously, right? But I'm not. Even I fall victim or fall foul to the faux pas of traditional Christmas expectation. Like I want to. You know, this year I've got a smoker, as you know, and I wanted to get freaky with some barbecue. But it was like, oh, hell no, we need to have like the traditional meats, right? I'm not going to let you smoke a short rib that looks like it's been through gravel. I want, you know, a pork rack. I want the ham.
Yeah,
well,
that's what I'm talking about. But to be fair, it's not, you know, it's not like, oh, well, let's go to Subway and we'll get some sandwiches. You know what I mean? Like it's Christmas lunch, you know, it does mean there's a typical kind of
Well, maybe that's what I'm referring to with this thing.
yeah. But I don't. But I think where you're going is like the preciousness of it, right? Okay, can I just lay my cards on the table? Christmas lunch this year, and for pretty much every Christmas lunch that I can think of for some time, it was like literally like, I don't know if store-bought chooks, but like near enough, right?
What, like bag chickens?
Yeah, like I'm not sure if they might have been like at a charcoal chicken shop as opposed to like Woolies, but that I think that's the vibe, right? So, and that's not my decision.
Yeah.
So
I'm not trying to high bar anything, but I just think on general it's like the etiquette side of it. That's all I'm calling out. And like, you're right, like not everyone would have that experience, but let's call a spade, that more boomers would care about this than millennials is what I
maybe think. Let's say I grant you that. I do think though in Australia it's a little bit different though anyway, because Christmas is such a bizarre like ritual to have in the 30-degree heat or whatever, right? So, we're kind of simultaneously trying to implement all of these traditions meant for the middle of winter, European cultural traditions into a summer paradigm here in Australia. So already, a lot of the traditions around, even something like having mulled wine or something like that, like it just isn't, you just don't do that, right? But some people do. And so there's these weird kind of traditions that sort of...
But roast is pretty
either work
universal,
or don't work.
I think.
Yeah, but it's not really what you typically have for some, like for a summer lunch, right? You know what I mean? Like it's...
No, but there goes the tradition and being caught up in what like success looks like, right? Like, and I think this is the trope, right? This is the problem with these events, that people care about it because it says something about how you finish the year, how successful you are. And I don't believe in that, but I think there is many people who are like, shit, all hell could have broken loose this year, but if I can put on that nice Christmas dinner for everyone, then like all is forgiven. I've got my life together. I can still put a good showing in. But coming back to this question though, right? Like I think we've covered off, right? I've laid my cards on the table. I do think that millennials, and I include ourselves in this, have different standards and different priorities when it comes to housekeeping, it comes to hosting and all this kind of stuff. We don't do it as much. I would say that I would agree to that in general, right? But this whole thing about like a mama's boy and reverting as well, that's an interesting concept, because to me, like that can be a hard thing to overcome, because the dude probably doesn't even know it's happening. He's just getting like babied or whatever, and he's not maybe standing up for his partner and stuff like that. So I think that you're going to sort that out within your family, rather than strapping on the punching bag, the boxing gloves and going toe to toe with your mother-in-law. That'd be my advice to this listener.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just what a stupid thing to have an argument over. You know what I mean?
You can't. There's not even an argument. That's the problem. Like, it's all these snide remarks and stuff like that. And then if you're the one who goes, "Hey, fuck you," you're the one that's made an argument. So it's just this horrible situation.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think this is like one of these realizations you have at some point when you get to sort of maybe our age, where eventually you have to, like, you flip from being the child to the adult, and actually the reverse happens to the so-called adults around you. Like they revert to becoming kind of immature almost, like and I think it coincides with retirement, right? Where when someone retires, they suddenly do not have other important pressing things on their time to like occupy them, such that these things that to us seem very unimportant suddenly become very important, even like just to the point they can't even empathize with what it is to be so run off your feet that you don't even have a spare minute.
It's like so exhausting.
Andy,
like a really good example of that, we're talking about preparing for Christmas and the Christmas rush, right? Like I find myself constantly trying to move through public spaces like shopping centers and on the roads and stuff, and I'm outstripping everyone. Like it's getting to the point now where, and of course I'm run down, I'm stressed, I've got the kids, all this stuff, where like I'll be stuck behind someone, or usually maybe someone a bit elderly or whatever, and they have zero spatial awareness. They're not like yielding their position or whatever it is. they've got these massive trolleys and all. And I find myself getting so frustrated, or being on the road and people are crawling on the roads and stuff like that. And you know who I'm talking about. But it gets to a point where you're like, am I the problem? Like, am I just in that part of life that's trying to live too fast, or trying to squeeze out too much? And really, I'm the one that's like, tailgating life. Because it's probably, like you said, they've got nothing to do. Like they're not in a rush. Here's a good question: why do you think the older you get, the slower you drive?
Oh, you don't have to be anywhere.
No, but seriously, like it's universal, right? Like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of it might be reduced. I don't know what would,
like reflexes.
Some of it could be, control over the vehicle. Some of that might be starting to deteriorate. But I think it's just that the incentive to be in a rush isn't there. Like when you're go, because you literally have to be somewhere, you are like darting in and out, right? But if you don't have that, hey, take it easy. Like you're not going to be doing that.
But doesn't it blow your mind though? And like the way that you drive now, like you and I drive, there'll be like a slow decline, and we won't even realize it's happening. But all of a sudden, we'll be driving 40 in a 60 zone. Yeah,
but do you ever notice how when you drive differently in different situations? So, for example, driving when you do need to be somewhere at a certain time, maybe you're running late or something, right? Versus you don't have any schedule that you're like, do you not drive differently in that situation? So
yeah, no, that's fair. But I never drive like I think about other people. So I never get caught out in the right lane and someone's up my ass and I just don't have any awareness that they're behind me. And that's what people do as they get older.
Well, I think that's there's a related piece there around just like the efficiency within which maybe we're trained to like drive, or like we're operating at maximum alertness and
transactions per second.
It's very optimized. We're driving optimally, right, on the roads, including like having kind of a mental model for what other road users are doing and like what their brain processes are doing at any given point in time, and like why they might be doing something, right, means we can project onto them, a rationale for, and we can go, okay, well, they're clearly late for some dentist appointment, so we need to, let them through. We need to create the gap, that we've got to merge, in a efficient way, in a zipper model. Otherwise,
I love when the zipper works efficiently.
But anyway, I want to take us somewhere else. We've talked about sort of the Christmas side of things. I want to talk about something quite different, which is sort of related to this time of year, which is New Year, right? So we're kind of in between Christmas and New Year at the moment. And I want to make special mention of the fact that 2025 will be the year that we will both turn 40. And I think that needs some sort of special, acknowledgement. But I want to get to my question related to that. And it's actually not a listener question. It's a me question.
It's an Andy question.
It's a hypothetical question for you, which is, would you rather be approaching 40 in 2025, or would you rather approach 40 in 1975, 2000, or, to 2025, which is what we're doing? Or maybe even like, let's broaden it out and say 2050. So in other words, you're 15 at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah. Look, you can kind of compute on this one in a way where like you're trying to work out what age you'll be when, and what could be afforded to you. And if you do that logically, major cataclysms aside, the more technologically advanced the society is, the better healthcare you will receive, right? So you like that. The logic of kind of the end game probably takes me to wanting that to happen, because there is kind of, cataclysms aside, a linear path around technology and how well you'll be looked after in your old age, right? So I'd have to kind of go there. But if I kind of just look at myself now, like the actual like act of turning 40, I think that it's hard to go past like turning 40s in the excess of the 80s. I think that would be really fun, right? Like that would be, and some of the I think by the time the 80s rolled around,
80s isn't on the table.
Oh, wasn't it? I thought you said
1975.
Oh, 75. Yeah, okay, maybe
No,
not.
that's a game changer. No.
No, because the 80s only like heat up in the mid 80s. So sorry, it was 75, 2000s, 225, was it?
Yeah, so basically 25-year intervals, right? So
Yeah, well, you got to go 2000 then. You got to go 2000 because Y2K, you're living on the edge. You've got all the best parts of technology are kind of already there in the forefront without all the excesses of technology ruining everything. The culture wars wasn't as crazy. You've got the Matrix. You can see at the cinema. Like there's all this. I'd have to go with the 2000s, I think. What about you?
Yeah, I think I had 2000s as well. I would pick that. And I think you started off with this like a very utilitarian sort of style answer, which is that, well, based on medical, technological developments, the later the better. But I just don't know if that's actually that holds, anymore. Like maybe in terms of medical science, yes, but I kind of feel like we've reached a turning point where maybe the truism has always been, things are getting better for everybody. Like for everybody, everything is getting better. I don't think that function is true anymore. Like I think we're getting richer in some sort of, material sense, like per capita incomes, still going to be growing and all that sort of stuff. But I think against some other variables, you can say things aren't getting better. So, certainly housing in, Australia is one dimension, but even, social media, our relationships with each other, whether you sort of take that to also include things like, politics and, kind of the sort of how crazy we've all collectively become. Like, I think, in some ways things have turned and it's become not as good. So 2000, like it just strikes me such like an innocent time, and even though like 2000, what happens after 2000? Oh, then we've got September 11.
Oh no.
But even the decade after September 11, like there's something so comforting about the Iraq War, with George Bush, like it's just something about that, like I mean, we kind of had some idea how to fight these wars, we kind of knew how to we kind of thought we knew what they were.
Yeah.
And the enemy was, it's this like dodgy, like, these dodgy terrorists who get into planes and fly them into buildings. Like, yeah, that's obvious. Like, now I kind of don't know who the enemies are. Like it's, they're not, it's not as clear cut as that.
Yeah.
So, I just, plus, it'd be remiss if I didn't mention, the Millennium Optimism and Frosted Tips, which my question threw up.
There's also this whole thing about definitely a cure for boldness would be on the side of later technology as well. Feeling extra sensitive because I got a haircut today, and usually when you get a haircut at most places, maybe not a barber, they kind of like build you up a little bit, and they're like, oh, you got really nice hair, whatever. I had this like catty gay guy today, and he was like, "Oh, I noticed your hair's like thinning a lot in the back," and he tried to like upsell me this, like thickening shampoo things. I'm like, "Ah, man, I don't have time for this. Like, just tell me I'm beautiful and send me on my way." So look, all those things, and I think that's why I picked 2000 as well, because you didn't have social media, and a lot of that kind of innocence and the kind of wonder of technology was there without all the horrible stuff that was soon to come. Although, the other end of that is, have you ever heard like someone who's really idealistic or someone who has been to a third world country for the first time talk about like this really weird 101 perspective that they get? Because I overheard that actually today at the hairdresser. One of the ladies was like, oh yeah, like I went to on my gap year, I went to Mexico, and it just made me really think like, they have nothing there. They're walking around barefoot playing soccer, and they've got Nokias. They've got Nokia phones, but they're just like the happiest people in the world. Like they're so happy. Like, no, I've never seen such happiness on the face of the children and the people there and all that kind of stuff. Like, and it made me think just like, oh my God, this is like the most basic like view on it, that consumerism and capitalism actually doesn't make you happy or whatever it is. And it's like, and you think that being a tourist in one of these places, you can kind of glean what it is that this, with all the problems that Mexico has, that they're somehow happier than the Western world. So I think that, again, it talks to the nostalgia of things, that we long for a time of simplicity and innocence, and it wasn't like that. There was heaps of ugly things. There was terrible things happening, like discrimination and other things, and all sorts of like crazy stuff. Like, remember in Sydney we had the King hit stuff, the people randomly coming up to people and punching them in the back of the head, and people died, and that's what sparked all our lockdown laws that then killed all King's Cross and all the nightlife. Like, we've totally forgotten about that around this whole. Imagine if that happened now, and there's talk about male violence and the spate of like men becoming more and more radicalized and violent towards women and all this kind of stuff. We've conveniently forgotten all that stuff, right? Like, I just think that people have short memories, and nostalgia is a powerful thing.
All right. Well, what are you doing this New Year's?
This New Year's we'll be going down to Melbourne, actually, to spend time. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure where we'll be, but we'll have all the 4 kids, so it won't be a rager. What's that famous DJ party that they have in Bondi every year? Is it like the Fat Boy Slim or something? Like, there's some kind of party, but no.
Yeah, no, not one I'm invited to.
Yeah, what are you going to be doing?
Yeah, not a rager.
You'll be knocking back the 196s.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your year, and we'll see you in the new year.
See you then.